how I've missed you, old friend. I've been wanting to do this for the longest of time and just could not get the right time. And I thought, what would be the best time to actually do this other than today? Because today, our podcast turns one. I actually spoiled myself with a little bit of cake, but let me grab some cake so you guys can see that our podcast turns one today. Happy birthday to the Resonate podcast. And that's basically who I'm dedicating this video to today. And today, I just want to share with you guys the lessons that we've learned while building a podcast over the past 366 days. I say 366 because the birthday was actually yesterday, but we're only celebrating it today. So we just added one more day. And we've been doing this podcast for a very long time. If you knew, not for a very long time, for 1 year, but that is a long time. If you new, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Expert and I'm the founder of Resonate Hub. And what we are is essentially just a community of people that give resources, tools, and tricks to entrepreneurs to be able to make more revenue and build purposeful businesses. Our core area is really in sales because we believe everything has to do with selling. Your marketing, all your efforts have to eventually translate into a sale. And out of my business, I founded the Resonate podcast, which is a podcast that is housed on my channel and is on all audio platforms. And about 366 days ago, we actually launched our first episode. Now, before I get into lessons, I want to kind of tell you guys how everything actually transpired and how it actually started. So I had been wanting to start a podcast for a very long time, and I remember contacting a friend of mine, Tato Rampedi, and I telling him that I wanted to start a podcast and I wanted help with equipment, and he helped me with equipment a bit. And we I think we did like some stuff at the previous office that we have had for Resonate, and it was good, but I just felt like, okay, it wasn't there yet, and the timing wasn't actually perfect as well because I was busy, he was busy with his team as well. And then over time, I then thought to myself, okay, I'm ready again to do this. And I contacted a couple of people in my circle saying to them, I don't have equipment, but this is something that I really, really want to do. And I would appreciate all your help. And one of actually an acquaintance of mine through social media said, hey, I've got equipment. It's not great, but it's okay. And you can use it. And we made arrangements for me to collect the equipment and we had the podcast. I think it was called Resonate actually. So if you go onto all the audio platforms, you'll actually see those very first episodes where I had with Tata was actually one of my first guests and quite a couple of other people. And I really had the right intention around what niche I would want to specifically key it in. It would be centered around the business that I already have. And so that I think I did a couple of episodes there, but there was a lot of moving parts around it and it made it hard to stay consistent at the time. And also my schedule was hectic. My brand also started picking up and I actually started getting a lot of work. So it was really difficult to like focus and do that very thing. So we ended up stopping again, and after some time, I was like, okay, cool. I think I'll pick it up when I'm ready. And then a few months, like as I just got into prayer and just talking to God, I really continuously felt the nudge to revisit it again, but this time at a bigger scale, at a larger scale. And more than anything, when God provides a vision, he always provides. And it's usually at the right time that he's like, okay, this is where you're going to go. And I remember calling Tato again and saying to him, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to pick it up, and just sharing the vision that I had with him. And he was like, okay, cool. I know somebody. I'm going to call somebody. And then that person's going to get in touch with you. And then we'll make this happen. And then indeed, he called somebody. And then that person got in touch with me. I went to go see the studio. I fell in love with it. And I started putting together the team. We got an editor. I also reached out to Stephanie, whom quite a lot of you know if you've interacted with the podcast, who's our production assistant. I also got in touch with her and we started putting the team together. We're like, okay, cool, let's start shooting. We got a few guests and we filmed a couple of first episodes. But because this was something that is so new, I think I became very overcritical over every single episode that went out. Like I remember saying to myself, even to the team, like, oh my God, why did I was nitpicking every single thing that went into that episode. I was just nitpicking everything, really. And there was no reason for me to, but it was just an insecurity of stepping into something completely new. So after a couple of episodes, I think after a while, I convinced myself that, you know what, you're overthinking it. You've shot about 3 to 4 episodes and you need to release something, right? So the team and I then decided, okay, this is one of the episodes that we're going to release. And after we release this episode, we're going to see how everything is going to go. And then we released our first episode. The response was actually really great. It was greater than we thought. We didn't get like millions of views, but we got the views that we wanted. We got feedback. And I think one of the maybe starting to get into the lessons really is like it's not about the amount of people that watch, but it's also about the amount of people that give you feedback. Sometimes you have 100 people watching, but five give you feedback to say, actually, I enjoyed this. And actually, this is what I learned from it. And for me, that was the key thing is like I wanted the platform to be impactful. I wanted the conversation to be impactful. And I felt like they would only be impactful if I get some form of feedback. And that's really what we got in the beginning. You have no idea how happy we were when the episodes were like starting to roll out, especially after our first episode. It was like, oh, okay, cool. And then the big thing for me within building this podcast, maybe getting into the second lesson, is focusing on the conversation that I wanted to curate. I was very intentional and I continue to be about what I want people to get out of the conversations that we have. One of the things I say if you listen to a podcast is always grab your notebook, grab your notepads and write down some notes. That is something that is so dear to me because I really believe in the power of learning, and the Resonate podcast is a resource that is now inclusive as part of my business where we really just offer these conversations in this community to say, this is where we want you to learn. This is where we want you to get like a free university where you get access to information, access to ideas, access to different thought processes that if you really harnessed and brought into your business, you would be able to actually get more out of it. And for me, that's been very, very key. And how and together with the team, really, how we really kind of sit down to figure out what would work for what conversation. The big thing we try to do is like when we look at a guest to invite, we look at what would be the best thing that they would be able to impart. So we've got all these other small little secondary things that we want to be part of the conversation, but we always have a primary core factor that we want each guest to bring out when they are conversing with us. And we try to get that as much as possible. So for me, I think lesson number two would definitely just be very intentional about where you want to steer the conversation and what you want people to get from this value. Every guest is very different and every guest has their own expertise and they have areas that really interest them the most. One of the things that I've loved the most every time I'm talking to people, most of the time when we talk to guests, is people say like, I remember Bumi last week when we were talking to her, said that, she's bubbling and she's getting excited. We interviewed Bulelani twice and he was just like, I'm enjoying this. And I think we have been so intentional into tapping into that part of every guest that incites them, that enlightens them, and that really shows a spark about the things that they care about the most and the things that they're passionate about. And when you bring that out of anybody, you get the best out of them, you get the best nuggets out of them, and you also get the best energy out of them. And that has been through the second point, which is being very intentional about the conversation that we want to curate, which is important. The third thing I want to share with you is one of the things that we also recently, I think we were doing this, but we were doing this unconsciously. And then we realized that, oh, actually, that's what we're doing. And that's what's also contributing to how great these conversations actually are. And it was maybe to kind of paraphrase it to talking to you now in this case is be very intentional about how you make people feel, especially when it comes to guests. And this talks into every business is what are your touch points. For me, it was very important that the person that is on the phone that is calling and asking our guests to come to the podcast, which is our production assistant, is lively, is excited, is happy, and makes our guests feel great. And it's always such a pleasure by the time that they come to studio, because most of the guests, I not most, but majority of the guests actually, I only get to interact with them when they come on set in studio. So our production assistant is the one that is talking to them from asking for the booking, scheduling the time, doing briefs, sending all the details and all of that. And she's doing all of that. And I get to interface them on the day that they come for the conversation. And what we've often seen is that because that experience is already curated in such an amazing way, by the time they are on set with us, it's just like, oh my God, they feel so special. They feel amazing. We never try to like get some spice or some juice out of them. And I think that is so important. It's that touch point for our business. And what this actually just kind of teaches us in our business really at the Resonate Hub is every touch point matters. Every touch point, from the person who picks up the phone to the person who responds to your email at your business, from the person who interacts with the guest, whether they're a salesperson and they go out there, whatever the case is, every touch point in your business is so important and you need to take care of it. And I think that we are seeing that nurture our podcast, and more than anything have even become far much more intentional about it. And just a shout out to Stephanie. I mean, Steph is absolutely amazing with the way that she interacts with our guests and the way that she works with us. Absolutely amazing. So shout out to her because she really has that department just like crazy, insane, and amazing. So that's number three, is be intentional with how you want to make people feel. And maybe number four is actually kind of piggybacking off number three, and that's don't try to outsmart your guest. This is so interesting. And it's not to say that, like, oh, you're smarter than the guest that you're talking about. It's just to say that you've invited that person on your platform because you respect their views on certain things, right? And sometimes you could agree on maybe like the view, but not agree with the sentiment of the view. And there is so many ways you can engage that conversation without making them feel like you've brought them on this platform to berate them, or, you've brought them on this platform to like, oh, show people that they're not that smart. I think it's really important to hold them in high regard, because this is your house. Like, imagine inviting somebody to your house and then you just like talking crap about them. They're not going to have a good time. So when you invite people to your podcast, you are essentially just saying to them that you want to hear from them. You value their expertise. You value what they have to offer, and you want to be able to communicate with them. And I think that is something that a lot of people need to do, especially if you want to curate a platform. It's sometimes how you introduce them, always makes them feel great. It reminds them of their accolades. It just pumps them up a little bit for the conversation. Sometimes makes them a little bit nervous, but also just brings them to light, and it just makes them alive. And that is part of what curating a great conversation is about. If you've been to like speaking engagements, you'll know that a lot of people who conduct speaking engagements will like talk about the guest like, oh my god, this is what the guest did and they did one, two, three, four. I promise you that is for the audience, yes, but that is also for the guest. It does something for the person that you're about to share the platform with, because it kind of elevates them to a standard that, oh, okay, I need to rock up and I need to pitch up as this kind of person. So that's actually very, very important. And I think that's something every single person that wants to be in business and that wants to build a podcast should really be interested in. Now, I share all of these points with light that we are just a year old, and this is really just the things that we are learning along the way. And if you're somebody who's building a platform, who's planning to build a platform, I think these things are going to help you. I think that we're still going to learn so much more. We have a long way to go because we've just started. I remember when we interviewed DJ Smooth, one of the things he said to me was, you will only start seeing big results potentially after your 100th episode. And we're not on our 100th episode. We literally just passed the halfway mark of 50, and we are still learning all through. And I've really taken pride throughout my brand and my business to teach as I learn, teach what I'm learning at that time. And as we just share the information, actually, I think that's the best way to describe what this conversation right now is, just being able to share with each and every single person that is listening, to say, if you're building a platform or you want to have conversations, here are different ways that you can make it better. The fourth one that I want to share is be patient with your guests. Sometimes one of the things that we've picked up is that a lot of people, even if they are great experts and they're amazing, they can be so great in their fields, but they might not be charismatic in front of a camera and a mic, mainly because it's a territory that they don't work in as much as you potentially do, or as much as I potentially do as somebody who is the podcast host and who's done this so many times. So sometimes they will be a bit nervous. Sometimes they will make a little bit of mistakes here and there. Sometimes they will like stutter, or they might not feel comfortable, especially in the first few 10 to 15 minutes. It might be a little bit of a dance. And I think your responsibility as a host is to make them feel as comfortable as possible within how you interact with them, and being patient and say, it's fine. You made a mistake. It's okay. That's okay. Would you like us to start again? We will always cut this part out. And I think when they feel safe, they begin to settle into now having a conversation with you. One of the things I say to most of my guests is that just pretend you and I are at a coffee shop and we're having coffee. I want us to have a conversation. You don't have to know the answers. And that's why sometimes every time I'll ask a guest a question, I'll also give an answer in my view with the question that I asked them, just to kind of guide them around where I'm trying to steer this conversation and what I would like for people to get out of this conversation. As when I think that's very important, because yes, there could be experts in a specific field. They could be like in the medical field or in whatever field, but because they're not on camera all the time, and they're not in front of cameras, it can be very intimidating, especially when you're starting out. For anybody, for yourself, for somebody who's starting a YouTube channel, also can be very intimidating. And just be very patient with them. Be kind, be warm, and don't make them feel like you're wasting their time or anything funny like that. Just be kind, be warm, and they will eventually settle into it as you start talking. And part of actually the strategy that helps guests settle into it is something that we do in the beginning of the podcast, which is asking the fire round of questions. We will ask them 2 questions, and just they're light, they're fun. And those questions are usually how we lead into the rest of the conversation. But we've kind of started on a lighter note that allows them to relax. And that takes away the the idea that they're being interviewed, because that whole style can be absolutely intimidating to people that aren't on camera all the time, or that don't necessarily create content, or that are just on a new platform. I've been to like other interviews or television interview, and I'll be so nervous because it's not my platform. It's not a platform I'm very comfortable in. So it's very, very important that you are very patient with them. And the fifth one is be willing to invest in your podcast. I'm going to be doing another video breaking down how much it costs me to actually build this podcast and to do this podcast every single month. Be willing to invest in your podcast. It's literally like a business that you might essentially need a little bit of capital in the beginning, especially if you want it to be at a certain standard. It is going to take so much time. Don't concern yourself with like, oh, the brands and the money and da da da. I think in the beginning, if you can, with whatever you have, it could be a phone, it could be a small lapel mic, whatever you have at that time, if you can, just be intentional about providing value with the conversations that you want to curate, even if it's just you talking alone onto your mic or your camera or whatever the case is. Just be very conscious about the information that you want to share and the value that you want to drive. And the rest will eventually start unfolding itself, but be willing to invest in it. I can tell you that much. When I am talking about the team at the Resonate podcast, which is our production assistant, our editor, and all the other small little details, like making sure our guests are comfortable. We buy certain things. Sometimes we do coffee, we do water. Sometimes if our guests are extremely hungry, we'll get them food. That is an investment. That is money that is coming from the business, and usually in the beginning from myself, to get put into this podcast so we can curate the conversations and build the platform. So it's very, very important that you're willing to invest wherever you are. And I'm not saying like do the extravagant, even if it's at the comfort of your own home and you're filming in your garage, do that. Or you're filming in your room, do that. But just be willing to invest in maybe doing it at a specific time because the lighting is better. Maybe buying the ring light at the time just so you can enhance the lighting. Maybe adding a little cute little deco elements, whatever it looks like for you. Just be willing to invest in it. I think I've shared about five now, and I think those are the five that I want to leave you with so that this video is not too long. I'm going to be doing a lot more content like this to be able to talk to you guys and share with you guys a couple of nuggets that I'm also learning within my podcast journey, within my business. A lot of things have actually changed since we actually spoke as far as my business is concerned, Resonate, my life. So many things have changed, and I am basically coming back onto YouTube to be doing these videos with you guys to catch you guys up into what it is that I'm doing and how I'm doing it, things that I'm learning, and etc. etc. But before I go, if you have not heard about the Sales and Entrepreneurship Summit, this is your chance. We are hosting our very first ever Sales and Entrepreneurship Summit on the 29th. Wow, I almost say 25th. On the 29th of March, 2025, where we are going to have amazing speakers, panels, a panel discussion. And the topic truly and the headline for the summit is going to be on how to leverage AI and increase our sales. So if you are a small business owner or somebody who wants to start a side hustle, you already have a side hustle, I think you should definitely come to the event. It's going to be amazing. More than anything, we're just building an amazing community of entrepreneurs who want to grow, or aspiring entrepreneurs as well, who just want to plug themselves into these communities and get access to all of these resources that are going to help them grow. If you can just gather from how I started this conversation, I was telling you how I eventually built my podcast. It was usually because somebody was a phone call away. I was able to call somebody to help me. I was able to reach out to somebody to provide something for me or to assist me with something to eventually start. And you realize that, communities are important, but what we want to really aim with Resonate Hub, and to an extent the event itself, is to further the communication and the information into just building a community, but providing resources and tools. Like, for instance, the CEO Blueprint, which I hope that you've bought for yourself, because if you don't, walala wasala, bro. If you don't, you are lulling and you are selling, and don't try to be about that life, okay? Get that for yourself. I actually have one here. I'll show you. It's basically this. It's a sales and social media content and business planner from Ambitious Go-Getters. We launched this about a year and a few months ago. It turned one in November. This literally has been our best-selling product, and it's essentially just a planner for small businesses to launch your business, to curate your content marketing. There's so many things. We have a lot of content centering this on the Resonate Hub page on our Instagram. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't gotten your ticket, please go ahead and get your ticket for the summit. I can't wait to see and meet you guys there with amazing, amazing, amazing speakers. We will be releasing the list of the panelists that are going to be coming at the event, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to love each and every single one of them. Okay, let me go. Let me head out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining me. I love you guys so much. I appreciate you. Thank you to the new growing community. I think we've grown so much since I last did like a sit down one on one video with you guys. And it's very exciting that we are where we are right now. And I just want to continue to give you guys so much value. So, yeah, thank you so much, guys. And I wish you well. I will see you guys on my next video. And happy birthday to the Resonate Hub, my darling. See you on my next video. Goodbye and stay blessed.